This is the single most complex structure in the entire universe, or at least the most complex structure that we human beings have discovered. It has 86 billion neurons and somewhere between 100 trillion and some say as high as 1 quadrillion synapses, which are the connections between neurons that use electrochemical energy to excite, inhibit, and modulate the signals from the other surrounding neurons. These synapses use thousands of varying types of molecules at different times and different quantities, sometimes working with or other times working against one another. Scientists, philosophers, and just nerds like you and me have been trying to understand the complexities of this organ for a very long time, at least since the time of the ancient Egyptians, if not earlier. Yet somehow, some way, in the relatively recent past, the idea that we're only using 10% or so of this organ has become common knowledge, despite it being nothing close to accurate. In today's video, with the help of the cadavers here in the lab, we're going to discuss how scientists know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are in fact using 100% of our brains. It's going to be a thoughtful one. Let's do this. While the ancient Egyptians and Greeks were the first to describe and hypothesize about different areas of the brain, it wasn't until the 1500s and 1600s that our understanding of this delicate organ really started to take shape, with the idea that all of these folds that you can see here were actually creating specific regions with unique functions. In the 1800s, scientists such as Broca and Wernicke were able to identify specific areas in the brain which were associated with language and speech, such as, which is not going to come as any surprise to you, this area here, which is known as Broca's area. Except these areas weren't just involved with the articulation of speech, it's also the understanding as well as the writing down of language. In 1909, Brodmann was the first to map the cerebral cortex, and he did so utilizing variations in regional brain anatomy, developing what are still used today and you may have heard of called the Brodmann areas. In the 1800s and 1900s, scientists and researchers made significant headway in our understanding of regional functionality by studying brain pathologies and injuries. Then, as surgical technologies and techniques improved, our understanding of the brain improved as well. Microsurgery allowed for minimally invasive procedures to be performed, as well as safe and ethical experimentation with the various brain regions. During surgery, the patient is awake, which allows surgeons to ask questions to the patient, and they are able to respond in real time as these areas of the brain are being stimulated. Patients will sometimes have seemingly random memories, smells, tastes, sounds, can even hear just plain old music. And this type of information has been extraordinarily useful from both a clinical and research perspective. But it was the development of neuroimaging that changed everything, because we could finally see in real time what was happening deep inside of the patient's brain without having to surgically open them up during various thoughts and activity. Neuroimaging comes in many different varieties, but it can be broadly classified into two categories: structural and functional imaging. Structural imaging allows for a visualization and analysis of brain anatomy, which is useful in detecting brain damage and abnormalities. Some examples would be computed tomography or CT scans and magnetic resonance imaging or MRIs. Functional imaging, on the other hand, is used to identify areas underlying brain processes that are associated with performing a particular cognitive or behavioral task. So some examples would be electroencephalography or EEG, positron emission tomography or PET scans, or functional magnetic resonance imaging or fMRIs. A particular interest to our conversation today are the functional imaging techniques, since they allow us to see various regions of the brain being used in a variety of different ways. An EEG detects the electrical activity of the brain, specifically the electrical activity of everything you see here, which is called the neocortex. And this is just the tissue that's on the surface of the cerebrum. This allows us to see the electrical activity during waking hours, during sleeping hours, during a coma, and even under the varying different types of anesthesia. PET scans use radiological substances to understand the metabolic processes of the brain. Scientists and medical researchers are able to indirectly measure the blood flow to the brain, which can vary depending on a variety of factors, such as neurodisease and even cognitive effort to an extent. But cancer, Alzheimer's, and even mood disorders have all been better understood through the use of PET scans. scans. fMRI is similar to PET scans in the sense that they both detect blood flow to the brain, but different in the sense that fMRI utilizes blood oxygenation levels to help determine brain activity, while PET scans utilizes radio tracers that emit positrons as they decay, which are then detected by the machine. But regardless, fMRI is the most commonly used scanning technique in regards to determining regional functionality as well as brain mapping. The point I'm trying to make here is that while these are just a few examples of the various neuroimaging techniques, scientists and medical professionals have a really good idea by using them which areas of the brain are active throughout the day in both healthy and unhealthy conditions. The verdict? We use 100% of our brain. Now, we don't use all of it at once. That's what we'd call a seizure. However, as the day goes on, we will use each of the areas in our brain to some capacity. Now, to give you a quick example, competitive chess players are likely to use more, or certain, I should say, cognitive areas more so than I would be using them if I was just sitting on my couch watching Netflix. But it's not as though I don't use those same areas to some capacity throughout the day. If we didn't use 100% of our brains, our body wouldn't waste precious resources on sustaining useless tissue. Neuroimaging scans would consistently show blank images, and neurosurgery would be the most wildly inconsistent and inaccurate profession in all of medicine. Better questions for us to be focusing on are going to revolve around topics like neuroplasticity or memories in the sense of how are they stored, utilized, and recalled. In truth, the brain is incredible enough without us propagating the nonsense of the 10% myth. As always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you in the next video.